Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited. Today I am here with Alanna Kaivalya, and we're talking all about her new book, The Way of the Satisfied Woman. And you are listening to Creating Wellness from Within, a podcast devoted to helping you live your best life through self-care and wellness. In each episode, we strive to offer you actionable advice and tools to help you on your journey towards greater personal wellness. I am your host, Amy Zellmer. I am editor in chief of Midwest Yoga Magazine and author of the Chair Yoga Pocket Guide, available on Amazon. I am passionate about yoga, wellness, photography, travel, and all things glittery. You can learn more about me at creatingwellnessfromwithin.com. Today's guest is Alanna Kaivalya. She is a best-selling author, educator, thought leader, and expert on mythology, spirituality, psychology, and women's empowerment. The author of The Way of the Satisfied Woman, Sacred Sound, and Myths of the Asanas. She earned a doctorate in mythological studies with an emphasis in depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute and is the host of the Satisfied Woman podcast. Welcome, Alanna. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, Amy. I really appreciate the invitation, and it's awesome to reconnect with you.
Yes. So Alanna was my yoga instructor through her virtual training program that she had.
Mhm.
And I took advantage of my downtime in COVID and completed my 200-hour training. And I've done a bunch of your other training. I've done your tarot training, and
Oh,
I think
nice.
I think I've taken almost everything you had available.
Oh, I love that, Amy. Thank you so much. That's really
I was a
kind.
fan.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah. And like I love supporting women that I admire and look up to. And, we've got to stick together and women supporting women. So
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a really important point. I love that you brought that right up off the bat because that's not been our cultural history. And
mhm.
many women we're just trained, ingrained into the idea that other women are our competition or that we need to be suspicious of them in some way, when actually that's one more way that women are at a disadvantage. And we
Yeah.
are we are so more advantage when we have groups of women supporting each other, when, as my good friend says, when we adjust each other's crowns,
Yes.
it creates a lot of power and a lot of ability to change the world.
Yes. And, your new book, um, uh, The Way of the Satisfied Woman, you go a lot into all of this. And maybe let's just start, give a nice brief overview synopsis of your book and what people can expect in it.
Yeah, sure. So, The Way of the Satisfied Woman is designed to alert the modern woman in this day and age to the best ways to create a life that is her own on her terms. We are in a really, I would think, exciting time for women right now.
Yeah.
We have more power, more choice, and more agency than we ever have before. And while we're not quite there, we're certainly farther along than our mothers, our grandmothers, our ancestors were. And so I want to create a pathway, a framework for women to really step up and in to that power, agency, change, and choice to make their life their own. Because what's happened with the women's movement up until now is while we've been fighting for equality, while we've been fighting for change, we've been doing it all on their terms, meaning the
Mhm.
patriarchy's terms. We want success in the way that they
Yes.
have told us it should look. We want our lives to be in the way that they've told us it should look. We actually have different needs as feminine women. We have different things that we want and different things that make us actually feel like we're making a meaningful life. And I'm not sure that that's ever really been examined. And so this book helps us to examine that, to rewrite the terms so that you make them your own. And instead of chasing success in that old patriarchal way, instead to create satisfaction. And I chose this word really purposefully because the definition is so powerful. Satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of your wishes and needs. Everyone on the planet wants to have their needs met. And when
Yeah.
we get our wishes met, that's what creates a meaningful life. Fulfillment isn't a KPI. It's not a bottom line. It's not a profit margin. Fulfillment is a feeling. And feminine
Yes.
women are embodied. We are feeling beings. And so when we feel fulfilled, when that pleasure arises, our life force is completely turned on. We're excited about life. It's not a vertical, must get to the top, climb over everybody trajectory, because that's much more of a masculine pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
It's more horizontal. It's inclusive. We are going to create lives of satisfaction when the people around us are also satisfied, when we're benefiting others. And there's a lot of research that supports that kind of idea. So I'm trying to pivot women a little bit into their own lane, give them their
Yeah.
own power, help them reclaim their femininity, and to do it on their terms in this world that we live in today.
I love that. And,
Thanks.
I'm doing a lot of advocacy work right now, and I'm focusing in on a lot of feminism and
Yeah.
feminist values. And it's so interesting how there's so much misunderstanding of what feminism is.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Absolutely. And I think it's changing. And perhaps unsurprisingly, feminine seems to be defined by every individual woman on her own. And that's really common because, we as women, we are unique, we are special, we all want different things. So, what one woman in her feminine strength wants might be very well different from another woman. But what I like to fight for and advocate for is the power for each woman to choose for herself.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just equality, right? That
Yeah.
that we're all equal. And there's this misconception that feminism means we have to be hyper feminine.
Mm.
But it's like, no, you have the freedom to be as feminine as you want or as masculine as you want. That's your choice. That's your equality. Um, and I love that for us, and that we can dress and look and act how we want to, not
Oh, yeah.
how someone's telling us to.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stereotypical kind of ideas of what a feminine woman should be or should look like. And one of the things that I stress in my book is that, because look, I was raised as a child of the 80s where the drum was being beaten, you can be anything you want, you can do anything you want. And that is absolutely true. But what I like to add as a bit of an addendum is with the way that a feminine woman will do it is a little bit different. She'll do it in her own way. So I use examples that are hopefully a little bit, get people thinking outside the box. Like, um, if a woman rides a motorcycle, because mostly men ride
Yeah,
motorcycles, but if a
right.
woman rides a motorcycle, she's going to be dodging and weaving through traffic with some style and some grace, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's riding the motorcycle, but we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. We may like to change our own oil, and we're going to do that a little bit differently. And we may want to create a business, but a true business run by a woman who is on primarily the feminine polarity is going to be run a little bit different than a masculine man would run it. And
Yeah.
that's fine. So I just want to open up kind of the expectations or the cultural norms of what has been put on us that actually doesn't suit us. Many people, when they think of what femininity is or what it means to be feminine, are the same kinds of labels that are used to suppress women. So, for example, you're quiet, you're submissive, you're meek, you're soft, you're agreeable, you're prettier when you smile. That's all BS,
hmm
as in a belief system that has never worked for us because nothing about femininity is quiet. I don't know if you've ever been back or been around a group of women, but we are not quiet. The
Nope.
feminine in its absolute energetic nature is wild, it's free, it's uncontained, it's changeable, it's unpredictable. It is not submissive. It is powerful. So all of those things that our culture has said that women or feminine people are, they're actually not feminine at all.
hmm
Yeah.
And, along the lines of what you're talking about with these belief systems, and a woman who speaks out has often been called a bitch,
Bitch.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, look at when Kamala was running and just the things people said about her, or
Yes.
Hillary too, when she
Yes.
ran. Like, a guy can act however he wants, and he is a leader, and he is,
Yeah.
believable, and we relatable. But a woman does the exact same thing. She could say the exact same thing, and she's going to be labeled a bitch
Mm-hmm.
or unreasonable or emotional.
And it's 100% culturally acceptable to do so.
Yes.
And I don't mean like that
Yes.
everybody, look, disclaimer here. We were all raised in this culture. This,
Yes.
this isn't
Yes.
anybody's fault.
Right.
Nobody's
Right.
doing this. And for the most part, I find that people who, participate or continue with these cultural norms, they just haven't really thought about it. There are a
Hmm.
lot of really good, amazing people, men and women, who default to some of these things that have just always been acceptable in our culture. But they
Yes.
have big hearts and they are full of love. And as soon as we open up the box and show them the ugly insides, they go, "Oh, right, don't do that anymore." So this is not a blame game. I'm definitely not, I'm not angry at anybody. Just FYI, we all have some things to learn. Women do too, because I've also seen women call other women
Yeah,
bitch, right? So this
absolutely.
is happening everywhere. And I actually have an online course called Stop Calling Us Crazy. And it
Or
highlights,
hysterical.
I know, it highlights the 5 ways that our culture commonly just suppresses
Hmm.
us as feminine women. And one of them is bitch. As soon as we have a big, bold idea
Yes.
that is uncomfortable for others or would be inconvenient to others, one of the quickest ways to stop us and shut us down is with a word like that. And same with crazy. I think,
Hmm.
the heart of that one, femininity, the energy of femininity, it has a couple of superpowers: intuition and
Mm.
emotional depth.
Yes.
Okay. Now, these things traditionally, historically, have not just been scary, but have been vilified and even
Hmm.
persecuted, right? I mean, women have been drowned in lakes and burned at
Yep.
stakes
Yep.
because of
Yep.
their intuition and thought to be witchy and
Yes.
otherworldly, right? So even women are scared to access these superpowers and have faith in them because all the way through our culture is the message that they are not normal, they're not acceptable, and they're not a great way to move through life or make a decision. And somehow the masculine superpowers of logic and reason are the only acceptable ways forward. This is just a discrepancy. This is just yet one more belief system that is incorrect and inappropriate, because intuition and emotional depth are just as reasonable ways of knowing something as logic and reason. And intuition and emotional depth, they just come from a different place in us as humans that don't need explanation, that don't have to make sense, but that are just as right and good and true as logic and reason. So, as soon as a woman has an intuitive moment or an emotional moment, the quickest way to shut her down and suppress her is to call her crazy, because that hurts.
Yep.
It hurts. And in a world where we all have to survive and thrive, as soon as we are seen as unacceptable in that way, we adjust.
Yep.
Belonging is critical. And if suddenly we feel like we're going to lose our belonging because we're too emotional, because we're too intuitive, because we're too loud, we will even participate in shutting that shit down.
Yep. Crazy, psycho,
Mm-hmm.
and hysterical. Those are words I've tried to stop using. And, if we go back in time, men could institutionalize their wives if they
Yes.
were found to be hysterical.
Hysterical. And do you know the origin of the word?
I don't.
This is fascinating. So, the origin of the word hysterical is actually from the Greek philosopher, I believe it was Aristotle, where it was thought that when a woman was emotional, her womb was wandering around her body. Like it suddenly unhitched itself from the vagina and was meandering. And that was
Uh,
causing the woman fits of, hysterics what did they call them? Humors, like all the humors were off. So that was the origin of the word. So even back in those days, an emotional woman was thought to be a dangerous or an
mm-hmm.
erratic woman. And so
Yes.
that's the root of the word as it comes from that hysterectomy.
Yep.
Hysteria is from the actual source of the womb, which is thought to be the cause of the crazy. It was a medical diagnosis
Yes.
in psychology from the early 1800s. And do you know when it stopped being a medical diagnosis?
80.
1980.
Oh, wow. That was a good guess.
So all the way up until 1980, it was medically appropriate to diagnose a
Oh.
woman as hysterical and institutionalize her
Mm-hmm.
and perform a
Mm-hmm.
hysterectomy and do all sorts of very aggressive treatments to try to get her to just calm down and shut up.
Yep.
So, it's not surprising that women have learned coping mechanisms, survival mechanisms
Yeah.
culturally. Even though, now you can't diagnose a woman as hysterical, that stuff lives in us. There's ancestral knowledge. That's where I believe intuition comes from, is that ancestral kind of epigenetic kind of knowledge that weaves through us that in order for a woman to belong, and that's critical, the survival of our species rests on our ability to belong to a group. So for a woman to belong, she needs to be protected. She needs to be taken care of. Historically, she needed to be provided for.
Mm,
Otherwise, we are not safe. And not just not safe, potentially harmed, potentially ostracized, potentially killed. Like things were dire for women for a long time. And so we've learned culturally to play small, to stop
yes.
talking, to favor logic over our intuition, and it's just become a vicious cycle. And luckily, we are living in a time now where unpacking that and undoing that is possible. It wasn't possible for my grandmother.
Right.
It would have been absolutely unsafe for my grandmother. We are safer now, not 100% safe, but safer now, and can start to undo some of these things and live a life that is our own.
It's interesting you say that, about your grandmother. So
Mm.
my grandmother came here in 1913. Somewhere in there she was a small child when she came here.
Mm.
Um and I because I'm always like, where do I get my political drive from? And it's
Mm.
got to be my grandma
Yeah.
because she came here from Czechoslovakia, so Eastern European, and just such a different attitude. Because what we're just talking about institutionalizing women, that was a very American thing.
And European.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, but definitely in America, we've tried suppressing women. Not that other countries haven't, but she just had such a different attitude, and she was very
Yeah.
outspoken. And I'm so grateful for that, right?
That's
That I
awesome.
had that in my life growing up.
Yeah.
Because you're like a lot of and she wasn't my grandmother, I didn't learn this till I was an adult. My grandmother had been married like 4 times.
Wow. What a
And that
rebel.
was unheard of back then,
What a
right?
rebel. That's very interesting. I actually dedicated my book to my grandmother, and my grandmother
Oh,
emigrated from the Ukraine in 1956. And she had a very different experience. She was married to
yeah.
my grandfather for 57 years, and she never spoke up. And the moment he died, she
Mm,
started talking. And the lady
mm,
had opinions that we had never heard before. And it was a real recognition in me of how she lived her life in such a way that kept her safe, but that really kept her small. And so she didn't have the chance to really be who she wanted to be
yeah.
and have the agency to do what she wanted to do, which is why I feel very strongly about living a life where I'm
Yeah.
empowered with this much agency.
That's really neat that you had that opportunity with your grandmother though. Like
Yeah.
to hear those stories and
She was a special lady.
yeah. Yeah. And like I grew up in a very traditional, my parents were married 68 years. years before my dad
Wow.
died. Yeah.
Some people don't even
And
live that long.
I know. You know, my mom was a stay-at-home mom when I was growing up. Her and I actually went back to I got my first job and she went back to work when I was 16.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
you know, but my mom wasn't like your traditional stay-at-home mom, right? Like
Yeah.
that wasn't her whole identity. Um, where, you know, more traditionally that has sometimes become women's their entire identity is
It
being a stay-at-home mom.
it is. I actually work with a lot of women around this that and funny you say traditionally, I would say it's not it depends on how far back you look at the tradition, right? But
Right.
kind of I think the expectation or the image we have in our head of a family is that the dad is the breadwinner, the mom stays at
Yep.
home, raises the kids, and we're still on the tail end of that
Yes.
cultural
Yes.
norm. And with all the agency and choice and power that we have now, and with people starting to wake up, I have the great opportunity to work. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching with women and women who have woken up after 20 years of only being called mom and they have no idea who they are. Right?
Yeah.
They don't know their own identity outside of being someone's spouse, you know, Mrs. whatever his name is, or mom to somebody. I remember when I was a kid learning that my grandmother had a first name.
Ah,
I was
right,
stunned.
right.
I was like, "What?" So this is, you know, there is that kind of thing that that mothers and women just disappear into these
Yep.
roles of service to other people. But if you look back far enough in our timeline, evolutionary timeline, this is not how we evolved. If you think about a tribal group,
Mm-hmm.
human children are complicated. We are the only species on the planet where a baby can't fend for itself within a few days of its birth,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Really, it takes up until about 10 to 12 years old. Now, I know that a 10 or 12-year-old still can't properly survive in the world, but a 10 or 12-year-old, like they can learn to do laundry. They can learn to make a
Right.
cheese sandwich. They're not completely helpless. And back in more tribal cultures, a 10 or 12-year-old was seen as basically a young adult. They were
Uh-huh.
really involved in
They'd
the
work on the farm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, you know, so if we think about the evolutionary stuff, that's still what's alive inside of our bodies. Now, in a tribal culture, a woman would have a specialty. Any person would have a specialty. Like, that's the guy, that guy can get the deer. That guy's
Mm-hmm.
great at getting the deer. This lady, she makes a mean fish basket. No one can catch fish with baskets like this lady. If this lady has a baby, we can't just take her out of commission from the tribe for 12 years. She can't
Yes.
just be raising baby for 12 years and then nobody gets their fish baskets. She has to keep making fish baskets because that's what she does. That's her contribution to the group, not the baby. So the way that it worked was the tribe helped to raise the children. And most importantly, and this is my
Yes.
favorite evolutionary note, thank you, evolution. This is why we have grandmothers.
Mm-hmm.
There are three species on the planet that the females survive past menopause: pilot whales, killer whales, and humans.
Wow.
And the reason evolution has seen fit to have women live past childbearing years is two reasons. Number one, grandmothers are integral in providing the moral and social compass for the tribe that
Yeah.
they live in because they are the harbingers of wisdom. Their work raising kids is done. They're here to tell you what's going on. They're here to deliver messages to you. They're here to
And
make
they
sure
have
that
so much wisdom.
they do. They do. And because they're incapable of bearing children, they can help with the children.
Mhm.
This is why, like, you know, evolutionarily, like we had multi-generational households or family groups living together. And I'm not saying we have to go back to that, but I'm saying there's a case for why women feel so lost
Yes.
when they lose themselves to their roles to other people.
And, you know, the phrase "it takes a village,"
Yeah,
right? That comes
exactly.
from what you were just talking about. Like
Hmm.
the village took on raising that child so that she could continue doing her fish baskets,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't just one mom with six kids, right? It was
Yeah.
this whole group. And like the book The Red Tent.
Yes,
I
exactly.
love that book.
Such a great book.
Um, you know, and they still had identity
Yeah.
where somewhere along the line we lost that, you know,
Yeah.
like TV shows that we grew up with, right? Like Leave It to Beaver, Happy Days, showed that nuclear family with dad went to work and mom stayed home and cleaned and cooked and took care of the
Mhm.
kids, you know?
It's also it also puts women at a disadvantage because another real feature of femininity is community, connection. We
Yes.
really thrive when we
Yes.
have that connection, collaboration, community. And if we're stuck at home with the identity only of mom, we're isolated. And there's a lot of little tricks in our culture that isolate women. This is one of them. The notion that we have to do it, we have to do everything ourselves and for everybody else at all times, that we give ourselves up for other people, that we're meant to be in this isolated nuclear family structure. Or for those of us that have been raised more recently with the notion of, you better your career first, put your career first. You can do everything. You can achieve. You can create the success. There's a real value in our culture placed on doing it yourself,
Mm-hmm.
DIY,
Mm-hmm.
independence, doing it your own way. And that's another way that like it's individualistic as opposed to relational. And human beings, surprisingly, are relational.
Yes.
We are meant for connection. We are designed to co-regulate. We do better with collaboration, and especially women, we do better with collaboration. So anything that isolates us or sets us apart from others is red flag.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going off topic here, but not really. That's what abusers do well, is
Oh,
they
yes,
isolate.
exactly. Hmm.
They isolate their partner.
Yeah. I also work with a lot of women in abusive or toxic relationships, long term, short term, married, unmarried, all sort of variations. And one of the things um, that I know is that it happens to all women, right? A lot of people, a lot of women get chastised. Why would you stay? Why would you stay so long?
Yes.
You're smarter than that. Look, I know a lot of very smart, very high achieving women in toxic relationships because
Mm-hmm.
it activates something that's fundamental to us. Number one, and I actually did this incredible survey where I asked women, why do you stay? And I had several different answers. Number one reason why women stay is that they hope it will get better. Women have
Mm.
hope. They believe in the power of others. They see the goodness in the other person. They don't see an abuser as just an abuser. They also see the good pieces or they remember the good moments and they hold on to those things. And look, women are, I wish it wasn't the case because it's a lot of emotional labor, but women are the emotional regulators of
Yeah.
their groups.
Yep.
This is one of the features of being a feminine woman. And so when there is emotional dysregulation, we're tuned to try and elevate that and support that. Now, obviously, if the dysregulation is perpetual and cannot be tuned, we are then at a disadvantage. But being in those isolated relationships, we start to see it as normal. We start to accept it as what we deserve. We start to feel our own fault in not being able to change it or shift it. We also know the judgment of others when they find out that we're in a relationship like this, especially, I mean, all women and the high achieving women. It's like I think that they suffer a little extra judgment,
Mm.
right? Um, It's tough. It's tough, and
Yeah.
it happens to the best of us. It's not
Yeah.
one kind of woman who gets into this relationship. It can happen to any woman under any circumstance. And
Yep.
that beautiful, open-hearted hope that makes them stay is a gift and something that I coach them to hopefully not lose as they move on.
Mm. I recently was in an abusive relationship and I, I saw the flags, but
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh no." And then it came to a head and I was like, "Wow.
Yeah.
Okay." But
Wow. That's a
then
bold statement by that
then he
gentleman.
then he tried to kind of talk it back and I'm sorry and that the class. So I never understood the abuse cycle.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I'm like, this is the abuse cycle. I understand how women continue to go back because
Yeah,
it's like this big warm hug after this big fight
it is.
and it
It is.
resets you.
It certainly
And
does.
you're like, oh, maybe this won't happen again. So I
Well,
absolutely understand it now after being in it.
and you believe in the hope that
Hmm.
he's telling you the truth, that you believe in the goodness of this person. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. When that hope is applied to a situation or a relationship that is actually elevated by your ability to emotional regulate, that works out great. And sometimes you don't know until you're deep in the thick of it. And the other thing that I know that it activates for women is, and again, if we talk about kind of that evolutionary need for belonging. Like women are strong, fierce. We can do anything, absolutely. And our bodies are just not as strong as a male body. It, we just are different. It's not a differential. This is not a hierarchical discussion. This is
Yeah.
just a differential. And so historically, in order for us to be safe, we needed to be protected and cared for, not
Yes.
just by the men of the tribe, but the
Right.
tribe. And so
Right.
we have a real innate sense of it is safer to belong than to be on our own. And that is true,
Yes.
right? That is true. So we'll make little concessions, we'll make little compromises because the lack of safety and danger of being alone is sometimes scarier than staying with these little challenges that then eventually turn into the normal, then turn into big challenges that turn into potential danger. It's like the frog
Mm.
in that boiling pot of water.
Yes.
So and the trick is too, and one of the things that I do a lot of talking about and advocating for is relationality. That I know for myself, I was very much taught and trained to be a solely independent woman. I mean, my fucking last name, I changed it to Kaivalya, which is a Sanskrit word that means the power of aloneness. I was ready to face the world all by myself, and I did that in New York City for 20 plus years and tried to prove everything to everyone else and myself that I could do it. But for a feminine woman to try and provide all of that for herself is actually exhausting. It's not
Yes.
impossible. It's not impossible. And there are times of life where it's either necessary or you choose to. I love all of those choices. But humans actually work better and thrive more in healthy, appropriate relationships.
Hmm.
So, I really want to talk about that and encourage that because I talk to so many women who, when I say like we are just exhausted, I see that look on their face. Like I just saw it on you, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm exhausted,
Yeah.
exhausted because it's tough out here. This world wasn't built for us. It didn't
Hmm.
have a feminine woman in mind when it designed these systems. So not only do we have to emotionally regulate everybody, we have to change the system. We have to question like there's a lot of work already on our plate. Can we just get some help? Some good,
Right.
qualified, big-hearted help?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, well, Alana, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I could
Oh,
talk to
good.
you for days. Um, I want to make sure we mention how people can find you, how they can work with you. Your website is thesatisfiedwoman.com,
Mhm.
and wherever you're listening, we'll have a clickable link in the show notes. Um, and I know you're also growing a YouTube channel, but tell us a little bit more about what people can find on your website, how they can work with you, all the good
Yeah.
details.
Yeah. So definitely thesatisfiedwoman.com is your clearinghouse. I also have, for all podcast listeners, a free reset session that you can download from my website. And the top nav, you'll see it right there. It's easy. I have a monthly membership that helps to reconnect women with their feminine nature. It's called Rooted. It helps us to stay rooted in our feminine flow and feminine rhythm. I do one-on-one coaching, and I also certify women to become feminine coaches for other women to bring this work on a wider scale. And yeah, YouTube, The Satisfied Woman as well. So hopefully find me
Mhm.
somewhere, and hopefully I've got some good information for you if you're interested in pursuing this kind of ideas further. And we're all doing our best, and I wish great satisfaction for all women everywhere.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today, Alana.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please consider leaving a 5-star review wherever you're listening to help others on their own wellness journey discover this podcast. And also head to Midwest Yoga Mag and download the current issue of Midwest Yoga Magazine for free. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next episode.